writing, math, even today. And now, Tom, I'm seeing this all over again. Have you noticed that young people can't enunciate anymore? They run sentences together now. They don't stop for pauses. And they mumble. It is very difficult to get the young people to really speak, enunciate. What they will do is, you gonna be here? You gonna be on there? And you would say, huh? Are you gonna go there? And you're saying, yeah, you did hear that word movie. So you say, yeah, I am going to the movie. And you say, I hope he says something else. Mumble just a couple more words so I know what the hell he's talking about and what movie he's talking about. And I find this with young people. It goes across. You can be female, black, white. It don't make any difference. But they now speak just as they text the same way. And we're losing something up here when it comes to our young people, because the style of education has changed, Tom, so much now. Education now is pattern and repetitive, and teachers have no real role in developing. Okay, give you an example. No one would have known about Isaac Hayes. I went to school with Isaac Hayes, raised up. We went to the same neighborhood together. And all the kids back then, just like kids now talk about, I'm going to be the greatest basketball player. Well, see, back then, when I was growing up, we all talked about being musicians, artists. I was an artist. I won the National Fire Prevention Poster Contest years and years ago, so I really started out as an artist. And Isaac Hayes used to walk the railroad tracks behind Manassas High School in Memphis. And he wanted to be a great musician. And he would go and do things like small concerts for the school and try to borrow musical instruments and things of that nature. And people laughed at him because, Isaac Hayes back then, he only wore like one pair of pants. And that was like some overalls, with one strap hanging on the other one off. And he never gave up his dream. So what happened with Isaac Hayes. There were so many of us from that period who came up out of the morass, man, of that ghetto life and that juvenile delinquency. When I was with, there's a group people don't hear too much about called the Invaders, the Memphis Invaders. And this is when I decided that I wanted to become a revolutionary because I didn't want to go to war. They were sending everybody to war back then. So I got my classification. And this was at the time that Martin Luther King got killed. So I had gotten my classification to go and report. So I said, I'm not going to report. I'd rather act a fool in the streets and let them, kick me off the classification list, whatever. And so I started doing a lot of juvenile delinquent things, But I also got involved with a lot of revolutionary stuff because, see, the reason they wanted people like me back then is because, I was in ROTC. And so I was going to automatically become a second lieutenant. I was going to, to Officers Candidate School. That's what they did, But then again, I knew that the ones who were getting fragged over in Vietnam happened to have been second lieutenant. That's why they. So I'm not going. I said I'm not going, and I ended up with this group. But I received a lot of military training as well. revolutionary guerrilla type training. And we got word that they were going to kill Martin Luther King. And there was a falling out among us because some of us wanted to get real violent about it, and some of us wanted to, kind of like intellectualize about it. Franz Fanon, Richard Other and all that stuff was very big with us and stuff. So we were doing what we call dialectical materialism. And so we started splitting into factions. This was just before MLK got killed. And the word came down from a girl who worked at this hotel, the rooming house, but it was also a little joint where they were doing a lot of prostituting and stuff. This was where James Earl was supposed to have been when he fired that shot. So this is in South Memphis, so we knew this girl. She was saying, listen, they gonna kill Martin Luther King. If he come back, they gonna kill Martin Luther King. Now, we were the most vocal group because we were just like, everything about us was like Black Panthers. We even wore black jackets and berets and things. I never got my black jacket, my leather jacket, But she was saying, listen, they're talking about killing, because she was like the prostitute then had been, the owner and the other people. And this is a tough one, man. That was a police officer. He was undercover. And I remember standing on Beale Street. We were a group standing on Beale Street. And all of a sudden, this guy, who was a part of our group, but I never met him, but he was telling us to start breaking windows, start throwing rocks, because they were putting dogs on us because, we were like having a flare-up about the money issue with the garbage strike. And so he said, bust these windows out. And so we started busting windows. We didn't know that this guy here was inciting us so that they could get Martin Luther King to come back. And that's exactly what he did. We were telling Martin Luther King not to come back, but he came back anyway. And that was the most difficult thing, most transformative moment in my life because, I didn't like Martin Luther King. Very few of us did. We wanted, direct action, self-defense. We didn't want all that laying down and stuff. And we were the ones who were hired to protect Martin Luther King at the Lorraine Motel. That was our duty. The Memphis Invaders. And people like Jesse Jackson and some others got mad about us protecting MLK. See, I can talk about this because, I lived it. Nobody can censor me because this was my life. So they told us that we had to go. The police, with the undercover agent who had infiltrated us, they told us to leave Lorraine Motel parking lot. Now, I wasn't in the group that was in the parking lot. I was with Sweet Willie Wine's group. We was down by a church. But we knew about them running all of the invaders off the Lorraine Motel parking lot, so there was nobody protecting MLK. And it was at that moment that you could hear the shot from where we were. You know?
Yep.
And right after that, I ended up getting arrested because I was out recruiting. Bad me, you know. I had all that military training, martial arts training, boxing. So I was with the gangs and the invaders who would go to schools and beat up kids who didn't want to join us. So I beat up a kid, and his dad called the police, and they arrested me for robbery, simple robbery. But it got worse than that because while I'm in jail, I happen to be the rockman on the 3rd floor for Dr. Ralph Abernathy. This was after Martin Luther King had been killed and everything. And Reverend Abernathy was supposed to try to take over Southern Conference, but they did not like him. Jesse Jackson, none of them liked him. And I would feed him because he was on a supposed strike. And it was my job to make sure he had everything he needed. I was the rock man on the 3rd floor, Shelby County Jail. And no one would come and see him mostly but women. Women. And he could eat anything he wanted. But, the jail made that clear because they didn't like the idea he was getting all that publicity talking about he was on a starvation diet. He was on a liquid diet. He wasn't on a starvation diet. He was just drinking juices and water. And they wanted him to eat. So all these church women would be coming in there, and they would be bringing all kinds of lasagna and all kinds of food for him and saying, Reverend, here we brought this for you, and he wouldn't eat it. He wouldn't touch it. And he gave me a Christmas card with $5 in it. He gave all the rock men a Christmas card, $5. And right after that, as you know, I think I told you about it, I went to the Tennessee State Prison.
Yep. And
because of my history and my reputation, they put me in with James Earl. And I didn't care anything about, not as politically. As a human being, of course I did. And I didn't understand why all of the great civil rights leaders had actually turned against him back then. I know now. But there's a building in Tennessee State Prison. It's called the White House. A little small building. And it's actually where they house the electric chair. And they, on one side, is a string of segregation cells. And on the other side is the condemned cells where they put you at when they're getting ready to electrocute you. And, one of the things about being in the prison back then is that they would, test the electric chair every single day. And all the lights go out, you see them blinking out and coming back on and all that weird stuff. And the only person that was there, because they didn't want him in population, of course, was James Earl. And when they put me after classification, they stuck me first on condemned row, where, my cell, you don't have a bed back then. It was just a concrete slab. Everything was in concrete. Even the sink was encased in concrete, everything. So, every day, it feels like I'm getting electrocuted because the walls are vibrating, because right next to me is the electric chamber. This is where they take you in right there, and they close that door and they shave you and do all of that stuff, and then on the other side of that is electric chair. So, every time they test this chair, I'm going like this, and I'm saying, God, please get me off this rock, please. And after I was there for about 2 weeks, they moved me over and they stuck me in with James Earl, the only person over there. And I'm saying, wow, They put me in with this guy here. But then he put me in his cell because his cell was stacked with crates and crates of law documents and stuff, you know. And he was the only person I'd ever seen back in the 60s with a typewriter. He even had a little small blue typewriter, Sears typewriter, manual. You know what I'm saying? So they put me in the cell next to him, and these cells are so small that you could, you can play, you know, chess and stuff. I didn't know anything about chess and stuff at that time, but James and Ray and I, we would chat.
Yeah.
And one of us would clean the floors, you know, and then the next day the other one. And so sometimes we'd talk. We had a shank. He had a shank. I didn't. He had a shank, but he showed me where it was. We kept it in a little shower at the end of this row of cells. And when we were cleaning up, they used to have, back then, this insect repellent stuff, industrial strength, we sprayed in cups and stuff. And so James and Ray and I, we would, you know, get high off this stuff here. And I never talked to him about Martin Luther King, and because I wasn't that into Martin Luther King.
Well, how would you describe James Earl Ray as an individual?
James Earl Ray was con. He's a real con. This is the thing people don't understand about cons, Tom. You can take a Ku Klux Klan guy, and you can take a Black Panther. They'll kill each other on almost everything. But when it comes to prison and how prison officials treat you, we were all brothers. That's a con. So